Welcome everyone. Oh, I forgot to close the door. That's better. How are you? Greetings. I'm going to give people a second to join here. And I'm going to move this camera a little bit. Sorry about that. It's Trump Tweets Today. Oops, I'm getting some video here on my TV. Sorry. So, this is Trump Tweets Today. Welcome to Trump Tweets Today. In a second, I'm going to explain what are we doing here with this show, Trump Tweets Today. Why are we having this show? I'm going to explain it to you in a second. But let me take 2 more seconds, let a couple more people join in. Because if I explain it right now, then of course I'm going to have to explain it again, which will bore the people who already are here. So you'd be being punished for getting here right on early. And maybe you just watched the Trump press conference. I might have something to say about that. But this show is about one thing and one thing only, and that's President Trump's tweets. That's what this show is about. There's a need for it. I think there's a need for it. That's why we're doing it. So that's why. No other reason, because I think there's a need for it. So I'm going to explain that all in a second. Hold on here. So welcome everyone. So this show is Trump Tweets Today. Steve, I'm Steve Lookner. You might say, Steve, why Trump Tweets Today? Well, it is my opinion, as President Trump has been president now for 3 weeks or so, I feel that his tweets are an extremely important part of his presidency, and also in trying to understand what he's doing as president, I think it's really important to look at his tweets. And I see them mentioned in the news, but they're mentioned so fast and there's like no analysis given to them. And this is, with all of the hours, the endless hours that the mainstream media spends on President Trump, and they say the same things over and over again, they don't spend, this is like hour after hour after hour. I mean, we have in the office, we have all the, we have Fox News on and CNN on and MSNBC on, and we can watch them all day, and it's just endless hours of talk about President Trump. And you'd think with all of these hours, they could spend some time just looking at his tweets, but they spend basically no time on this. And, it's when they do mention his tweets, it's so quickly mentioned, and same with like newspaper articles too. It's so quickly mentioned. It's like, he tweeted about this, or they show a picture of the tweet, and they write like one sentence about it, or say one sentence about it. How is it? These are important. These are his words. These are unfiltered. They're coming from him. And he's giving you like a window into his soul, so to speak. And if you really want to understand him, I think you have to look at these tweets, and not in a quick way. I think he puts a lot into these tweets. Every word is important in these tweets. He's not casually throwing them out. And I think, given that people want to know what he's thinking, I think one of the best ways of doing this is looking at these tweets, but you have to look at them carefully. You can't just look at them really quickly, and you can't just look at them and use them to confirm what you think he's thinking. Look at what he's saying carefully. These things matter, and I just think it's one of the great uncovered things of his presidency so far, his tweets, and I've seen no analysis of them anywhere. They get briefly mentioned. So what I wanted to do, part of this is just for me personally, but I thought that you might be interested in it as people who are interested in the president and interested in politics. I wanted to go through his tweets, and I'm not going through all his tweets. This is Trump's tweets today, not Trump's tweets for all time. So the idea here is, I thought of this because this morning he sent out about 6 or 7 tweets, and I was looking through them and I was like, oh my gosh, like there's so much here, and there's so much he's saying here, and so much to digest here. And I thought, this really is worthy of some more detailed analysis rather than like the no analysis or like few seconds of analysis the mainstream media gives it in both print and on TV. So, and I've been thinking this for a while, if you've watched when we cover breaking news, I'll often say, yeah, I wonder if he'll tweet, because when he tweets, it's so meaningful and it's so important to understanding him and to understanding where he stands on stuff. So, and maybe as a signal to where he's going in his presidency. So I am shocked that the media is not covering these more, that there's not like dedicated segments on like news shows and in newspapers devoted to his tweets. How can that not be the case? And just today I saw some people complaining. But by the way, the after press conference roundtable on CNN was like a cut above today in terms of like media being angry at somebody who's like not giving them the access they want. I mean, there's so much anger on the CNN roundtable right after the press conference today. It was amazing. It's worth going back to watch if they have it online or something. But anyways, you have all these people who like are like angry they're not getting access and they want to get questions asked, and it's like, but they're not spending any time looking at his tweets. This is an important forum for him. This is an important way he shares what he's feeling, and it's unfiltered. But you have to look. You have to look in detail. So what I want to do today is it's Trump tweets today, AM edition, so he might tweet later. I just want to look at the tweets he sent out this morning. There's a bunch of them. And go through them carefully and say, what do these tweets, what are they saying? What do they show about what he's thinking? So let's begin, shall we? That's the idea. And if during the show you have any comments on his tweets or comments on my comments on his tweets, feel free to let me know. You can go to my Twitter account, which is @Lookner, @LOOKNER, and direct message me, and I'll be able to get that here. Or you can email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. Okay, I want to go to his Twitter now, and I'm going to see, can I reverse the camera and show you? So my big experiment is, I want to show his tweets from this morning. I got the first one up here. Now, ideally, I can reverse the camera. All right, I'm going to try to reverse the camera now. I'm pointing it at my monitor. Let's see if this works. Oh, it works. Wonderful. This is tweet number 1 from this morning. Tweet number 1 from this morning, okay? And this tweet is from, you can see it says 6:40 a.m. So all these tweets came out this morning, about 6 or 7 of them. This is number 1. And this tweet says, the fake news media is going crazy with their conspiracy theories and blind hatred. MSNBC and CNN are unwatchable. Fox and Friends is great. There's a lot going on here. I'm going to try to move my iPad over and see if I can get this in the... No, that's not working. Oh, hold on. So bear with me as I try to do this. Okay, there we go. A little focus. Are we focusing? There we go. Okay. So again, the fake news media is going crazy with their conspiracy theories and blind hatred. At MSNBC and at CNN are unwatchable. At Fox and Friends is great. So I'm going to hold it on the tweet for a while I talk about it. But I think eventually I'll come back to me just because it's a little hard for me to talk and hold this. When we do this in the studio, I can just have the tweet up. But for now, let's look at this tweet. So and I just want to say there's so much going on in this tweet. There's so much going on here. So I'm going to go back in a second and put this down so I can talk to you without holding this up. But maybe if you want to, at home, go to Donald Trump's Twitter account and you can get this tweet for yourself. It's like 6 or 7 tweets down. So see if you can do that. Let me just try doing this one more time and seeing if this works. Can I move this? There's that. Hold on. No, it's not going to work. All right. There we go. Okay, so there's the tweet. The first part is the fake news media is going crazy with their conspiracy theories and blind hatred. The fake news media. So the first thing is the fake news media. That's the first thing he says. All right, let me cut back to me so I can actually concentrate here. And I'll walk you through what I'm talking about on the different tweets. So this is his first tweet of the day. And it starts off, the fake news media. That's the first 3 words, the fake news media. Now, this is interesting to me. Hold on, I gotta secure myself and set myself up so I can speak into the camera. There we go. The first one is the fake news media. That's the first 4 words of the tweet. And this is not fake news. This is the fake news media. That's a specific phrase. Now, maybe I'm wrong. I don't recall him using that specific phrase before. Do you? Maybe he has. I don't, though. But see, even that phrase is significant, that he's saying the fake news media. Again, my working assumption here is that when he tweets these tweets out, every word counts. he's not just randomly tweeting stuff. So you need to look at these things carefully to understand what he's thinking and about things he's going to do as president. And I think these tweets are very revealing, but gotta go slow. So he begins the fake news media. So this is now saying he's no longer talking about fake news stories or fake news people or fake news in general. It's the fake news media. Now there's this question here though. Does he think, when he says the fake news media, is he saying the media in general, or is he saying a certain bunch of media which is devoted to fake news? But also, when he says the fake news media, that kind of implies like you might think, he says the fake news media, and then he mentions MSNBC and CNN. So does he think all of MSNBC and all of CNN is fake news and not specific stories? So, let me say this also. When he says the fake news media, that suggests like a group of them working together. So it's almost like, I don't know if that's a sign that he thinks they're working together or that there's like this organized fake news thing, because he's not saying fake news reporter X or fake news network Y. It's the fake news media. All right, so that alone, just those 4 words, and I don't feel like I've seen him use those 4 words, use the term fake news media, at least not prominently like this. So it suggests to me that he's thinking of this as a really big thing, this fake news thing, and on the organizational level. It's not like a certain reporter or certain stories. It's on an organizational level, and it involves like many media organizations. So it feels like maybe he's been reading the news and watching the news, and he's seeing more and more stuff that he feels is fake news, and he's starting to feel that this is more pervasive a thing than he initially thought. So that's what I'm reading into there with the phrase, the fake news media. Okay, again, we are just on the first tweet of this morning, and the first words were the fake news media. Let's move a little farther on this tweet. So it begins, the fake news media is going crazy with their conspiracy theories and blind hatred. That's the first sentence. The fake news media is going crazy with their conspiracy theories and blind hatred. Okay, so going crazy is an interesting phrase there. The fake news media is going crazy with their conspiracy theories and blind hatred. So now going crazy, wow, like what does he mean by going crazy? So to me, when I hear going crazy, I hear something like they're acting more nuts than usual. They're not acting normal. So given that this is coming out right after the General Flynn resignation, and so this is coming out after like 3 straight days of coverage on General Flynn in Russia, I think a safe assumption is that he's talking here about the media's coverage of the General Flynn stuff, and also like the Russia stories about President Flynn's campaign people were talking during the campaign to Russian intelligence people. Those kind of stories came out, last night and today. And when he says they're going crazy, that suggests like even more than usual they're going crazy. So maybe he's seeing their response of the last few days and thinking like, wow, this is even more like they're more outraged than usual. Also, the word crazy implies irrationality. So he might think, this is something I said last night on a podcast, that it seems to me the level of like, given what General Flynn actually did, which was talk to a Russian ambassador, and maybe he mentioned sanctions, but none of that in itself is a sign that like General Flynn or President Trump is like wants Russia to like do well and at the expense of the U.S. and like the media is portraying the story as if like, oh my gosh, there might be a conspiracy among General Flynn and Donald Trump to betray the United States and promote Russia because that's who they really care about. Now, General Flynn talking to the Russian ambassador, even if he brought up sanctions, in no way suggests that General Flynn is like working for the Russians or something. Maybe he just wanted to talk to the Russian ambassador early because he thinks that'll help him get his foreign policy goals accomplished when he actually takes over as national security advisor. But that's not like anti-American and pro-Russian. That's just like, that could easily just be somebody who's just trying to do the best for America. So when Donald Trump in his tweet, when President Trump in his tweet says the fake news media is going crazy, and then he says with their conspiracy theories and blind hatred. So going crazy with their conspiracy theories, I think maybe here he's getting at the point I just mentioned. He's getting at that, like, and all that, like, if you look at what General Flynn did, even if you disapprove of it, whether you approve of it or disapprove of it, on the face of it, there's nothing about it that suggests that, like, President Trump and General Flynn are, like, pro-Russian and, like, don't really care about America at all. I don't see the connection there, and I don't think so. And also note the phrase President Trump uses, conspiracy theories. Now, a conspiracy theory, that term is usually reserved for some kind of theory you have which doesn't have real evidence to back it up. You think something happened, like, hey, the Martians killed JFK or something. You know, it's a theory, but there's no evidence out there for it. And I think when President Trump says that the fake news media is going crazy with their conspiracy theories, he's talking about how he's focusing on how the Russia stuff that's come out the last couple of days. The media is really focusing, a lot of even the mainstream media, I'm not talking about like extreme left-wing media, like the supposedly more neutral media, is constantly talking about, like, in this very sinister ways, how General Flynn, they're implying that, like, he was, like, working with the Russians or something like that, or like President Trump and his advisors are, like, supporting the Russians, and there's always this implication of something sinister going on there, and maybe involving betrayal or disloyalty or something. So sorry, here, my phone was buzzing. I just want to get it off to not be distracting. So I think when he says in this tweet this morning, the fake news media is going crazy with their conspiracy theories, I think he's reacting to the Russia stuff, and maybe he's specifically saying, look, you're drawing all these conclusions that there's no evidence to draw. But note again, every word matters in these tweets, and he doesn't just say going crazy with their conspiracy theories. He says the fake news media is going crazy with their conspiracy theories and their blind hatred. Okay, so let's look at that part of his tweet. The fake news media is going crazy with their conspiracy theories and blind hatred. And blind hatred. What does he mean by that? And blind hatred. Why does he say they're going crazy with their blind hatred? Well, and who is the hatred for? Is the hatred for General Flynn? Is the hatred for President Trump? Is the hatred for everybody who supports President Trump? Is the hatred for Russia? So he says hatred, and it's for someone, but who is it for? Who do we think it's for? The fake news media is going crazy with their conspiracy theories and blind hatred. Well, notice also he says the word blind. He doesn't just say the word hatred. He could have said going crazy with their hatred, but he said blind hatred. What does he mean by blind? Well, blind suggests that you're not seeing something. You're not seeing something. You're not looking. You're not looking. So perhaps here, President Trump is talking about how the media has this hatred for him and General Flynn and people in his movement. But what they don't see is the other side of the story. They don't even look at people who support President Trump, where they're coming from, where President Trump himself is coming from. They don't even look. They're not even willing to consider it. And if they did consider the other side, maybe they'd be more sympathetic and wouldn't be going so crazy. So this, to me, I think back of the campaign last year, and I don't have to tell a lot of you this, but there was this real sense to me, and there's still this sense now, that people on the left, like, how many countless social media posts did we see where people just said, like, anyone who votes for Donald Trump is irrational? Anyone who votes for Donald Trump is crazy. If you're voting for Donald Trump, you're a racist. And these people would just think that they would just say this stuff, and they wouldn't even bother to try to like think through, wait a second, is there a way that somebody could not be a racist and not be irrational and still support Trump, President Trump, but at the time candidate Trump? What could be going on in their heads to make them do this? But so many people, and this so angered me and frustrated me, and it still happens, refuse to just look at it from the other side's point of view. I'm not saying they have to eventually support President Trump, but they're not even willing to put themselves in the shoes of somebody who's not themselves, who's not some wealthy person living in a coastal city whose parents were wealthy and they went to some good college and they talk a lot about politics even though they really don't know that much about it. And they talk about politics like once every 4 years and they haven't really actively followed it. But they're not willing to put themselves in somebody else's shoes who maybe are demographically different from them or economically different from them or racially different from them. And when they don't do that, then it's so easy for them to say, well, you're irrational if you support Trump, or you're a racist if you support Trump, because they don't see, they don't have any empathy, or they're not willing to have empathy, and they're not willing to see the other side. And so when President Trump, that's what he might be getting at with blind hatred. Again, the phrase he used is blind hatred. Every word matters here. And when he says the fake news media is going crazy with their conspiracy theories and blind hatred, that suggests to me that maybe he's talking about how these people, there's a lot of people in the media who I don't think hate is too strong a word. I mean, if you look at like Maggie Haberman, if you look at her tweets over the last year, to me, they suggest she inside hates Donald Trump. Katie Tur, if you look at her tweets, I think she hates Donald Trump. I don't think hate is too strong a word for these people. Now, you might, and I don't use that word lightly. Now, they don't say the word hate, but look at their tweets for the last year like I've been doing, and you tell me what if you agree. But I think he sees these people and he sees their attitude towards him and towards his supporters and towards his co-workers like General Flynn, who was a co-worker of his. And he sees that hatred as it's just reactive and emotional and unsympathetic and not even opening your eyes to even look at the other side's point of view. So I think maybe he's talking about that. Okay, so to sum up so far, remember, this is Trump's tweets today. The premise of this show is that President Trump's tweets are very important if you want to understand President Trump. And strangely, the media, which spends hours and hours and hours and hours and hours every day talking about President Trump, doesn't focus at all on his tweets. And at most, they show a picture of it for 5 seconds, and they say 2 sentences about them. But as I've read his tweets over the last few months, even over the last year or so, to me, they're very important, and definitely he takes care to choose certain phrases. And if you want to understand President Trump, you need to look at his tweets, and you need to look at them carefully and in detail. And so all this show is about is looking at his tweets and saying, what did he say here? What's the exact language he chose? And what does this mean about him? And unlike most politicians, like Hillary Clinton, but most politicians, I'd say, his tweets, I believe, genuinely come from him. And that's, you might not get him unfiltered like in a press conference today, understandably, but you are getting this unfiltered window into him with his tweets. And so if you want to understand him, you got to look at his tweets. So we just looked, and I could have gone more slowly. I'm trying to go, somewhat fast to not bog the show down. But we're looking, he tweeted out, I think, 6 or 7 tweets this morning, and we've only been looking at the first tweet, and we've only looked at the first half of the first tweet. And as you saw, there's all these phrases in there: fake news media, going crazy, conspiracy theories, blind hatred. And he chose those phrases. And those phrases are all meaningful, and it's important to understand if you want to understand his tweet, you gotta look at those phrases and try to ask yourself what they mean. All right, let me show you this first tweet again. I'm gonna talk about the second half now. So the tweet was, we just talked about, this was his first tweet this morning, the fake news media is going crazy with their conspiracy theories and blind hatred. MSNBC and CNN are unwatchable. Fox and Friends is great. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the second part of the tweet, which is MSNBC and CNN are unwatchable. Fox and Friends is great. All right, let me go back to me now. Hold on. I'm back. Okay, this I find very interesting. So MSNBC, so he's just talked about the fake news media going crazy with their conspiracy theories and blind hatred. Then he says MSNBC and CNN. So first of all, this suggests that the fake news media includes MSNBC and CNN, and not just certain people on them. He's applying that to both of them. And he is also implying they're going crazy with their conspiracy theories and blind hatred. So that's implied. But he singles them out as, he says, unwatchable. Now, unwatchable is interesting here. I think if you want, a mistake you could make here is say, oh, this is, see, I do think President Trump has sometimes like had personal attacks on people, or does something like personally that's not like, you might say, well, that's not really an attack on, that's not really supporting his argument, that's just a personal attack. But somebody might take MSNBC and CNN are unwatchable as like a personal attack, and they might say like, oh, there President Trump goes again. He's just like, he's not even making a point. He's just like saying like they're unwatchable. Like it's just like an ad hominem attack on those networks, and it's just because he's angry at them. But I don't think that's the case here. He's not just saying they're unwatchable like they're bad. You have to look at what he said before. He said the fake news media is going crazy with their conspiracy theories and blind hatred. Then he says at MSNBC and at CNN are unwatchable. That suggests he's saying they're unwatchable because what they consist of is going crazy with conspiracy theories and blind hatred. He thinks that if you're not like them, and you don't have blind hatred, and you're not going crazy with conspiracy theories about President Trump and General Flynn and the Trump administration, MSNBC and CNN are unwatchable. And I have to say, I have sympathy for that view. I don't think all the time they're unwatchable, and he might not be saying that, but I will say this. After the press conference today, and I do watch a lot of CNN and MSNBC, I try to watch all the networks. After the press conference today, there were like 5 people on from CNN, and basically to me it was just Angry Fest USA, where they were all so upset that President Trump hadn't taken questions from like CNN the last few press conferences and didn't answer the questions they wanted answered, that it was just outraged person after outraged person. Now, they could have, and I found that unwatchable. I had to shut it off after a while. Now, look, I'm not saying that it's illegitimate to say, hey, President Trump didn't take questions X, Y, or Z today, or President Trump today only called on these media outlets that are conservative. But there's a way of discussing that which is just like calm, and you talk about it, and then maybe you try to be sympathetic and say, now why is he only calling on these outlets, or why wouldn't he answer the question? Why did what? And they were saying, they were really angry because like they were saying like some stuff he said today about why General Flynn was let go was different than what he said yesterday or what Sean Spicer said yesterday. But rather than trying to calmly and sympathetically say, hey, can we make sense of these two accounts, and is there a way they're consistent? It was just anger, and people so angry that they didn't get called on. And I personally found that unwatchable. It's like it was so angry and so not calm and just like no attempt at sympathy that I didn't want to watch it. And I found it hard to watch. So when President Trump says in this tweet this morning, MSNBC and CNN are unwatchable, he's not just blind, he's not just like throwing out a random attack at them. He's saying they're unwatchable because they're all going crazy with this blind hatred for him and coming up with these conspiracy theories. Okay, so that's that part of the tweet. And then the last sentence of the tweet is, Fox and Friends is great. So this was interesting to me. He said, MSNBC and CNN are unwatchable. Fox and Friends is great. Now, he did not say Fox News is great. He did not say Fox News is great. He said Fox and Friends is great. And look at what time he's tweeting this. This is 6:40 a.m. Oh, well, so this is interesting. So 6:40 a.m. That's when Fox and Friends is on. So it's very possible to me he was watching Fox and Friends and he's saying Fox's Friends, I'm watching them that right now. They're great. So this suggests that maybe this morning he was flipping around his channels and he saw what was going on as MSNBC and CNN. So maybe when he said MSNBC and CNN are unwatchable, he just meant like right now. So it's not, you can even see it's not like attacking the whole network. It's right now they're unwatchable, and Fox and Friends is great right now. So that perhaps is what was going on because he tweeted this out at 6:40 a.m. Anyways, that's my take on his first tweet. But as you can see, I mean, I think there's more to it than initially meets the eye. And I think the phrase, again, I said this before, but the phrase blind hatred, when he says the fake news media is going crazy with their conspiracy theories and blind hatred, I think there's a bigger message when he uses the word blind. It's saying like, hey, you're doing the same thing you did during the campaign. You're not putting yourselves in the shoes of my supporters and people who are sympathetic to me, and you're not putting yourself in my shoes. You're not putting yourself in General Flynn's shoes, and you're making this mistake. And I think he chose that word carefully. And so that to me, there's a lot more of that tweet than meets the eye, and I think it's important to look at the wording of it. So to recap, it's Trump tweets today. It's a show where we look at President Trump's tweets because I think they're really important and no one's really analyzing them and taking the time to go through them carefully. And he chooses his words carefully in these tweets. So if no one else is going to do it, at least I'm going to do it here at Right Side Broadcasting. So if you want to write into me during the show, you can, and give any comments, you can either go to my Twitter, which is @Lookner, @LOOKNER. Follow me if you'd like. But if you want to write in and comment and have me read the comment on a show or ask a question, go to @Lookner and direct message me. Or you can email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. And I'm going to look in a second to see if there are any comments or anything. I just want to say this. See, this is what's great about Right Side Broadcasting. No network would ever do this show. Now, no network would even do the half-hour version of the show. So we've done one tweet in a half an hour. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I had nothing... and I feel like we went through that tweet faster than I ideally would like to. So, but the thing about Right Side Broadcasting is like it's not mainstream media, and it's a place where if it's like we have this idea, we think it's a cool idea, and we think you guys would be interested in the idea. I mean, I wouldn't be doing this unless if I thought none of you would be interested in it. But Right Side Broadcasting is like, okay, just do it. So where else can you find a show devoted to analyzing President Trump's tweets? And I do think this is a very important part. I'm just stunned no one else is doing this. I think it's so important. So thank you, Right Side Broadcasting, for letting me do this. And now let me just go to see if there's any messages here from you guys. Hold on a second. I need to rearrange my window here. Stop that. Sorry. Okay, messages. I have a comment here. It doesn't look like it's on a tweet. So I'm gonna keep the comments to the tweets because I'm not sure if you meant them for this show or not. Let's see. I have a comment not on tweets, so I'm not gonna read that yet. And we have, David Webb says, when they do not want to see the other side, these people you have to place a mental trap to expose their bias and halt the flow of thinking. That's David Webb's comment. Thank you, David. Hold on a second. So Amanda has a comment about the media, which I think might be related to the tweet. And Amanda says, don't use my name. I think you meant don't use my Twitter handle. So if you mean don't use my name at all, I don't have a last name for you, so I apologize, Amanda, if you meant that. I thought you meant don't use my Twitter handle. But Amanda says, please don't. I think it's crazy that the Clintons get gifts from foreign countries like Saudi Arabia and mainstream media acts like that's the norm, but yet there's no proof of Russian connection to Trump and they're screaming impeachment. The mainstream media is literally living in an alternate universe. People have woken up and common sense is uprising once again. So I think this comment here from person, I won't even say her name anymore because I don't know if she wants me to, but is saying like, there's an agreement with President Trump's tweet about how the mainstream media is not is sort of very one-sided and not willing to see the other side of things. So thank you for the comment. Let me just see anything else here. If there are any comments here, I don't want to miss any. Okay. Sorry, and then I want to just check my email and make sure there's no comments there. I like to get to all your comments and questions as you ask them. We have an email here. Okay, I don't think this is about the Twitter stuff, so I will stay off it for now. Again, as we're going through President Trump's tweets here on this episode of Trump's Tweets Today, if you'd like to make a comment or ask a question, I'm happy to read it on the air as long as it's clean. The two ways to do that are direct message me on Twitter at @Lookner, at Lookner, or email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. Let's move on to President Trump's second tweet of the morning. We only talked about the first tweet so far, and we talked about it fast. I thought we talked about it fast. Okay, let me go to tweet number 2 this morning. Okay. So much, there's so much going on with these tweets. Like every word is chosen for a specific reason, I feel like, and it's you gotta look at them closely. All right, hold on here. Let's get tweet number 2. Here's tweet number 2 of the morning. This is at 7:08 a.m., so about 20 minutes after the first one. It says, "This Russian connection nonsense is merely an attempt to cover up the many mistakes made in Hillary Clinton's losing campaign." This Russian connection nonsense is merely an attempt to cover up the many mistakes made in Hillary Clinton's losing campaign. What is he saying here? Let's just look at it for a second. I'm going to read it one more time. I think it's so interesting. This Russian connection nonsense is merely an attempt to cover up the many mistakes made in Hillary Clinton's losing campaign. Okay, let's talk about this one. And again, if you want to follow along with these tweets and have them up on your screen, I'm not in the studio now, so we can't do a split screen today. But what you can do is go open up a different window on your computer or your if it's possible on your iPad, or pull it up on your phone or something, and you can look. It's a tweet that was just sent out at 7:08 this morning from Donald J. Trump's account, so you can look too. All right, so let's look at this tweet. What is it saying? The first part of the tweet says. Actually, it's one sentence long, but it says, "This Russian connection nonsense." Let's stop right there. This Russian connection nonsense. So, note what he's saying. Russian connection nonsense. So he's saying the whole idea of a Russian connection is nonsense. So what specific connection is he talking about there that's nonsense? What specific connection? Okay, so this is not, it seems to me not about the General Flynn so much as it is, there was a story that came out last night in the New York Times that basically said, hey, intelligence community has there are a bunch of contacts between Trump campaign people and people in Russian intelligence during the campaign. Now, note that the New York Times in this report didn't say what they were talking about. They said they didn't know if it was about President Trump. They said they didn't know if it was about the campaign. They said there was no evidence that these talks involved any kind of like Russia affecting the election at all. So just contacts between people. And it could have been about business. That's what the report said. But President Trump, but the media covered that as if like it was some evidence. A lot of the media seemed to take it as some evidence as some nefarious thing going on between President Trump and Russia. But he says this Russian connection nonsense. So I'm guessing he's talking about the connection that the media in the last, say, 24 hours has been implying there was between Russia and President Trump's campaign and President Trump. But it's also, I think, applying to the general connections that have been implied. Oh yeah, so like congressmen yesterday were made these public proclamations like, we need to investigate the connection between President Trump and Russia and the election and stuff like that. And it's like there's no evidence ever presented that they broke into like the ballot boxes and stuff like that. I mean, if you want to say, okay, so Russia helped release true emails and stuff like that and tried to sway the election that way, I mean, all right, we'll give your evidence on that, but So they released emails, but like, I don't know. I mean, is that, is that like, I'm guessing our country does try. When like President Obama goes, during when the Brexit thing was going on, and he says he supports one side or the other. Now that's not hacking into emails, but it's supporting one side or the other. So I'm guessing our government does do that kind of thing where they, without like breaking into the ballot boxes, do what they can to support one side or the other. So like, do I want Russia breaking into our emails? No, but do I think, even if Russia did break into our emails to support break into John Podesta's emails to support President Trump, do we have evidence that President Trump like ordered this or something? No, not that I've seen. So this whole Russian connection stuff, I think when he says this Russian connection nonsense, he's reacting to all of the media stuff about this, and media stuff and Congress stuff and stuff on the left and stuff with the general public, where people love to say there's this nefarious connection between President Trump and Russia, but there's never any good evidence for any of these claims. And if the point is just like, well, his people talk to their people, and you don't say what it's about, well, that's not good evidence for anything. Okay, let's move on in the tweet. This Russian connection nonsense is merely an attempt to cover up the many mistakes made in Hillary Clinton's losing campaign. Okay, there's a lot going on there. It's merely an attempt to cover up the many mistakes made in Hillary Clinton's losing campaign. Okay, so my first question is, who is attempting to cover this up? Who is he talking about here? The Russian connection nonsense is merely an attempt to cover up the many mistakes made in Hillary Clinton's losing campaign. So you'd think, well, the obvious candidate for someone who wanted to cover up the mistakes made in Hillary Clinton's campaign are like Hillary Clinton's campaign staff or Hillary Clinton herself. But I don't think that's what he's talking about here. I don't think he's saying, like, well, this Russian connection nonsense that, like, Hillary campaign staff is talking about. So, what's he saying here? To me, when he says this Russian connection nonsense, remember his last tweet was about like CNN and MSNBC and about like the media, so the fake news media. So, it seems like maybe he's saying, when the media in general talks about this Russian connection stuff, they're trying to cover up the many mistakes made in Hillary Clinton's losing campaign. So, is he saying that the media is trying to cover up the mistakes made? Now, mistakes made by whom? By the campaign or by the press? When he says it's an attempt to cover up the many mistakes made in Hillary Clinton's losing campaign, who is he saying the mistakes are by? So again, it seems to me that he's saying the people making this attempt to cover up the mistakes made in Hillary Clinton's losing campaign are the media. But why is the media trying to cover up the mistakes made in Hillary Clinton's losing campaign? And whose mistakes are they trying to cover up? So I'm trying to figure out, I think he has something in mind here. What's he saying here? What could he be saying here? So, I have a thought. I have a thought here. This is my thought. I don't know. See if you like this thought. The media was constantly saying President Trump had no chance to win. The media was constantly saying, except for exceptions like Hannity or people like that, for the most part, the media was saying no chance to win. And Hillary's going to win. Even on election night. I remember Fox's Frank Luntz on election night. I don't know if he has the tweet still posted, but he posted like election day at like before the polls closed, like, that's it. Hillary Clinton's the new president. So even like Fox News people were wrong about this. And they made these mistakes of constantly saying President Trump had no chance to win. So this is a way to make sense of this tweet. Perhaps what President Trump is saying is something like this. The media is talking about the supposed links between President Trump's campaign and Russia. Because what the media is trying to do is say, hey, the reason President Trump won the election is because Russia interfered with coordination through President Trump. And that the only reason we, the media, were wrong about the election and wrong about Clinton winning is because, well, it was an unfair election. And as long as we can argue it was an unfair election, we never have to face the fact that we, the media, totally blew it. And we totally blew it because we thought Clinton was going to win, and we told everybody Clinton was going to win, and we said Trump had no chance, and we said this again and again and again, even on election day. And we blew it. I mean, we're supposed to be, media professionals. We're paid. Think about it. These people, this is their job. Like media people who cover politics, this is their job. They're supposed to be like the best at covering politics, and they get paid like six-figure sums, if not more. That's all they're supposed to do with their time is cover politics. That's their job, and they almost like the vast majority of them just utterly blew it with the election. Now, you might think perhaps it's hard for them to admit. I have this job. I'm supposed to be awesome at this. They pay me lots of money. I'm supposed to be one of the best in the country. And I totally blew it. I had no idea what I was talking about. I totally messed up. And perhaps it's hard for them to admit that. So maybe this is the kind of thing President Trump is getting at in this tweet. He says, the Russian connection nonsense is merely an attempt to cover up the many mistakes made in Hillary Clinton's losing campaign. So I think a plausible reading of that is President Trump is during the last couple of days seeing even more of this nonsense about how there's all these nefarious connections going on between him and the Russians and that were involved in the election. And he's just seeing that as people who don't want to admit they totally messed up in saying that Hillary was going to win and didn't give him a chance. And also, let me say, he might be applying this to like Congress as well, because Congress the last couple of days, a lot of people have been coming out and saying like, we need to investigate Russia. And these are the same Congress people who didn't give President Trump a chance either. So I think, when you initially read this tweet, it might just seem like a personal attack on like Hillary Clinton or Hillary Clinton's people, because it says this Russian connection nonsense is merely an attempt to cover up the many mistakes made in Hillary Clinton's losing campaign. And you might see it like, oh, he's just trying to deflect the Russia story by talking about Hillary Clinton. But I don't see that. I think there's a plausible reading of this where he's saying like, look, you're just hearing more and more of this like implication that there's something wicked and nefarious and sinister going on between me and the Russians and that affected the election. But this is just, he thinks that this is just them not being willing to face that he really won the election and they were really wrong. They were wrong the whole time. So That to me is a much more interesting interpretation of the tweet, and one which seems plausible to me given what he said. But again, you don't see that in the tweet unless you really look at the language of it. So, and here on Trump Tweets Today, we think these tweets are important. I think they're important. I think you really need to read into them and go slow and calmly and not angrily and not emotionally. Calmly look at what he's saying. President Trump is giving us a gift in a way with these tweets. He's giving us this very unfiltered look into what he's thinking in his mind. And that's, I would say, unprecedented in terms of presidents, in terms of giving stuff to the general public. But it's up to us, if we want to use this to help see what he's thinking, to not react immediately. And I think if you look at the tweets, the words are, he's choosing specific words, and we need to look at the specific wording to see what he means by these tweets. And that's what we're trying to do here on Trump Tweets Today. So he tweeted out 6 tweets this morning. I'm going to try to get through all of them. Note that we're at the 49-minute mark, and I've gotten through 2 of them. Two of them. But I don't feel like we're going slow. For example, on that last tweet, I just gave you what I thought was one plausible interpretation. Surely there are other plausible interpretations, but I'm giving you this one. So I encourage you, and just for the rest of his presidency, if you want to understand him, look at his tweets and pay attention to them. And the media just isn't doing this, and I don't know why, and that's why I wanted to do this show. So if you want to, during the show, if you disagree with me or agree with me or have a comment or have a question, would love to hear from you and read your comment on the air or read your question on the air. So what you can do is 2 ways to do that. Go to my Twitter account, which is @Lookner, @LOOKNER, and direct message me, or email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. Let's check and see. Let's check and see if there are any comments now that came in. Let's check and see if there are any comments that came in. Hold on as I go to my Twitter. Okay, this is from Jimena Contreras. Thank you, Jimena, for writing in. And Jimena says, Trump is our voice. We have a truth narrative that is finally coming out. So any of his tweets are a codified expression of that. Having a truth narrative laid out would help to report on his tweets and also help to combat the lies and spin. So thank you, Jimena. And Jimena makes a very interesting point. Jimena says Trump is our voice, and any of his tweets are a codified expression of that. So it's almost like what Jimena is saying is, when you read President Trump's tweets, Jimena feels, you're not just reading what he thinks. He is speaking for Jimena and lots of other people. So if you feel that Trump is your voice, when you read Trump's tweets, President Trump's tweets, you're reading like your own voice, and he's giving your own voice a public forum. That's a really interesting perspective, Jimena. Thank you for that. Very interesting. Thank you for that comment. Let me see if there are any other emails. As usual, very high. I'm always impressed with the comments and the questions people send in here. Let's see. Hold on. Are there any more comments today? So Noah Norris writes in, interesting, the New York Times article links Trump for Russia connections, but then completely comments, there is no evidence currently of Trump administration connection with Russia. Mind blown. Yeah, so I had said something about that before. If you read the New York Times article that came out last night, and that's getting all this press about about how President Trump's campaign officials during the campaign were in contact with Russian intelligence. If you actually read the article, and this is the article everybody's freaking out about today, it says there's no evidence that they were talking about President Trump. There's no evidence that they were talking about the campaign. There's no evidence actually what was being talked about. So. And also, I've also heard people say it's a common thing for campaign officials, to have contact with intelligence officials in other countries, especially because it's also possible that if you have contact with a Russian intelligence official, you don't even know that person's a Russian intelligence official because they are, but they're not out to you as a Russian intelligence official. So, fair point, Noah Norris, about that story. Okay, so we're here at Trump Tweets Today. Let's see here. We've only covered, he sent out 6 tweets this morning I wanted to cover, which is, we've only covered 2 of them, so I want to get to the third one. Someone just asked me about reading the chat. So it's a bit hard for me when I'm doing this to read the chat because the comments go by so fast. And then if I open up the actual screen, it gets kind of complex here for technical reasons. So please, to make it easier for me, I would love it if you have a comment and you'd like to send it to me. It's not that hard. Send it to me by either email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv or go to Twitter at Lookner, at Lookner, and direct message me. And if you have a comment in the chat you want me to read, just cut and paste it and then email it to me or send it to me on Twitter, and then I'll see it. But that would make life a lot easier for me. So in an ideal world, I would be like I would have like the 5 eyes and I could look at everything at once. But it's easier for me to if you email it or direct message me on Twitter, that would make it a lot easier for me. So I'd appreciate that if you could do that, and because I'd love to read more of your comments and answer more of your questions. Okay, so let's move on here to another of the tweets, the third tweet that President Trump sent out this morning. Let's see. There's number 2. Here's number 3. Okay. Let's turn to tweet number 3 here on Trump Tweets Today. I told a friend of mine that I was going to do this show, and my friend suggested I call it Triple T. So maybe in the future I'll call it Triple T. Here we go. Here's the next tweet. This is 7:10 a.m., so about 10 minutes after the last one. Information is being illegally given to the failing New York Times and Washington Post by the intelligence community, NSA and FBI, just like Russia. Once again, so much going on in this one tweet. There is a lot going on here. We got to take it slowly and go through it piece by piece to know what he's thinking and really saying here. So let me read it again. Information is being illegally given to the failing New York Times and Washington Post by the intelligence community, NSA and FBI, ? Just like Russia. Okay, let's talk about what this tweet means. What does he mean by this tweet here? What's going on with this one? Let's see. All right, let's go back to this one. Feel free again to call it up on your own screen. I'm sorry I can't do a split screen at this point on my iPad, but if you want to check the tweet, it's the one he sent out at 7:19 a.m. Okay, the first part of the tweet, what does he say? He says, let me take a drink here real quick. See, I have a glass, not a water bottle. And I didn't slurp, so you can't complain about that anymore. He says information is being illegally given to the failing New York Times and Washington Post by the intelligence community, NSA and FBI. So I am guessing that part of what this is referring to is in the last couple days, these stories that came out that like the big stories the media was talking about the Russia and Trump connections, supposed connections, came out in the New York Times and Washington Post. So the Washington Post is the one, I don't know if the Times did this as well, but the Washington Post definitely was one who came out with that General Flynn spoke to the Russian ambassador about sanctions story. And that story was based on, it seems like, leaks from the intelligence community. And the New York Times yesterday came out with a story that said like sources from the intelligence community or some kind of inside sources, whoever they were, say that the intelligence community has uncovered these communications between President Trump's campaign staff and the Russian intelligence officers. So I think President Trump is specifically referring to that stuff, but also other stuff that's been coming out when he says information is being illegally given to the failing New York Times and Washington Post by the intelligence community. Now, note that he doesn't say is being given, he says being illegally given. So he is saying this is illegal. Illegal. It's not lawful. Now, an implication of that, if it's illegal, is that somebody should be investigating this. So you might think when President Trump says information is being illegally given to the failing New York Times and Washington Post by the intelligence community, he's not only just pointing out like how bad is it that the intelligence community is doing this, he also might be pointing out somebody should be investigating this. Maybe he's talking about the Justice Department. Maybe he's talking about Congress. Maybe he's saying to Congress, like, you're so worried about investigating me and investigating Michael Flynn. Why are you not investigating this? This is illegal. So that illegal word, I think, is an important word, and it's a signal that like people should be paying attention to this. People who are, especially because in the last day you have all these people saying like, what General Flynn is illegal. It violated the Logan Act. So President Trump here is using the word illegal. Maybe he's referring to that part of the charge against General Flynn, that what he did was illegal. And he's saying information is being illegally given to the failing New York Times and Washington Post by the intelligence community. So if you're so concerned about General Flynn breaking the law, maybe you should be concerned about the intelligence community breaking the law by illegally releasing this information to the press. So that's something he might mean. Okay, so he says information is being illegally given to the failing New York Times and Washington Post. All right, to the failing New York Times and Washington Post. Now, failing now, first of all, I don't know if he means failing New York Times and Washington Post or failing New York Times and Washington Post. I don't know if failing applies to one or both, because I know he's said the New York Times is failing in earlier tweets, but I can't tell if he means both are failing or he thinks both are failing or one are failing. Now, why does he say failing here? Okay, so one possibility, this is a possibility, is that he's just angry and he likes to get a shot in at either the New York Times or both the Times and the Post. And that's a possibility. He's just angry and he's trying to get a shot in on them by saying they're failing. But I like to look at alternate interpretations. And so why else could he be saying failing? And, I will say, it's bothered me a little bit when he said failing New York Times in the past, because I don't like when he does something that I feel like is sort of like an ad hominem attack. And by ad hominem attack, I mean like it's not part of his larger argument. It's like saying like, I shouldn't listen to that person because they have a stupid mustache. It's like, well, whether they have a stupid mustache or not shouldn't depend on whether you think they have good views. And so when he says like the failing New York Times, if he's just attacking them because they're failing and he thinks they're like the business is failing, that doesn't mean that what they say isn't true. So if you just see it as like a shot on them, I don't like when he does that kind of thing, because I think that can get people to dislike him, and also that might get in the way of him getting his larger legislation passed, and it's not good for his presidency. But let's wonder, is he not just doing that kind of out of spite or out of anger? Why else would he be saying information is being illegally given to the failing New York Times and Washington Post? Well, here's something he might be saying when he says failing New York Times and Washington Post, or just failing New York Times. Maybe he's saying not just that they're failing, but there's a reason they're failing. And the underlying message here is that they're failing because they're so biased against him. And they're failing because they're fake news, as he calls it. And they're failing because people don't want to read stuff that they feel is really one-sided and not giving the other side a chance. And also they're failing the New York Times because, and this is my personal view about the New York Times, I used to consider it the best newspaper out there. I think for decades and decades, what was great about the New York Times is, well, first of all, like, their informational content was really good, and they like you could read an article about any topic, and they did a great job of like summarizing the most important information and having it in there, and you could read an article and you just felt smarter about the whole situation. But another thing about the New York Times was it was very down the middle. Their goal was not to promote an agenda. Their goal was just to give you the facts. And even if somebody, like, say, did wrongdoing, that people did something people would think is wrong, they wouldn't say that person is wrong. They would just give you the facts and they'd let you make up your own mind. For some reason, and I've said this before, during the Trump campaign, the New York Times decided to become a definitely anti-Trump paper, and they gave up this, I don't know if it's like 100 years or whatever, this amazing tradition the New York Times had of being like the best newspaper in the world maybe, and also just not taking sides on things, giving you the important information, but being this neutral giver of information. And they just threw that away and have decided to go in the tank for anti-Trump. And perhaps it was, my guess on this is just it's like a short-term business decision, but if that's the case, it's just idiotic, because it's like, you've just alienated everybody who've grown up with the Times, who read it because it's like neutral and like this neutral great giver of information. And now you're just appealing to this totally different audience, and you've given up the thing. You had this amazing tradition and you've just thrown it away. And I think they've done that. But perhaps when President Trump says they're failing, he's suggesting like they're failing because they've given up this tradition. They're failing. Failing implies you were successful before. And when he says failing, he's acknowledging that they were successful before. And I think there's a message there when he says failing New York Times and also failing New York Times and Washington Post. But I'm not sure if failing is supposed to apply to the Post. But he definitely is supposed to apply to the Times. I think there's something more than just he's saying like, haha, you're failing. He's saying you're failing because you've taken this anti-President Trump stance and anti-people who support me stance, and it's so biased and it's blind, as the word he used in his other tweet said, and it's just so unsympathetic, and it's so angry, and maybe that's why you're failing. So I read that in to when he says failing. See, by slowing down, I had never even thought of that aspect before, and it makes sense. By slowing down and looking at his tweets calmly and not fast and paying attention to the wording, I think we can really find out a lot about what he's thinking. Okay, so let's continue on with this third tweet of his. What we've covered so far is information is being illegally given. So we said illegal is important. We said failing is important. Information is being illegally given to the failing New York Times and Washington Post by the intelligence community, in parentheses, NSA and FBI, question mark? Let me show you this real quick because it's been a while since I showed you the tweet. Let me show you this. Information is being illegally given to the failing New York Times and Washington Post by the intelligence community, NSA and FBI, question mark? Question mark? Why does he say NSA and FBI, question mark? So when I saw this tweet, I was like, why does he say that? Question mark? NSA and FBI? So let me come back to me. Why does he say that? Why does he say information is being illegally given? Information is being illegally given to the failing New York Times and Washington Post by the intelligence community. NSA and FBI question mark. So, all right. So it sounds like he's saying the intelligence community is illegally giving this information to the media. And then here he's guessing what part of the intelligence community is doing this. And he says NSA and FBI question mark. So why does he pick out those two? And also he says question mark. So is it like he's just guessing? This is really fascinating to me. Like, does he think like, I don't know, I'm just giving you a guess? So, and who does he leave out? So who does he leave out? Like CIA, would they be somebody who have this information? Or, I guess the NSA and the FBI, are the likely candidates because, I think the New York Times article mentioned the NSA. I don't remember if the New York Times article about the information gotten that President Trump, the information about there were articles about in the Times and the Post about General Flynn talking to the Russian ambassador and also President Trump's campaign staff talking to Russian intelligence officers. And I think in one of them, they said, one or both of them, they said that the NSA monitor communications, so maybe that's where the communications originated. Oh, and I think they might have said in these articles, like, there's an FBI investigation going on into some of the campaign officials. So maybe he's saying NSA and FBI because that's what he's read, that's where it could have come from. But he's putting in a question mark because, like, the question mark is interesting. Because the question mark says to me that, all right, so I think maybe he's saying NSA and FBI because that's what the articles have said. But he's saying question mark because he's like, well, I don't know if I can trust these articles, and I don't know if the articles in the Post and the Times are telling me the real story. And maybe when you say NSA and FBI question mark, maybe he's saying, as of now, I'm suspecting everyone. As of now, that might be a message, because if he just said NSA and FBI, maybe if there's someone else in the intelligence world who's leaking this stuff, they might feel like, whew, he's not on to me, so I'll keep leaking. So maybe this question mark after NSA and FBI is a way for him to say, I'm not taking anything for granted here. I think this could be anybody. I'm going to look into it. And don't feel safe doing this, that you're never going to be prosecuted for this just because, the newspapers aren't mentioning it to you, mentioning who you are. Could be, that's a guess. Okay. The last sentence of the tweet. This is also fascinating. I got to show you this again. These tweets, there's so much to them. Oh. All right, the end of the tweet is, just like Russia, information is being illegally given to the failing New York Times and Washington Post by the intelligence community, NSA and FBI question mark, just like Russia. Just like Russia. Why does he say just like Russia? Why does he say that? Just like Russia. Okay, I'm going to give you my guess. Here's my guess. So why does he say just like Russia at the end of this tweet? So he seems to be saying, well, here information is being illegally given to these media outlets by the intelligence community, and in Russia that happens too. So I guess he's saying in Russia the intelligence community would give damaging information to like the Russian press or something. But he's saying just like Russia. So, so an obvious line of thought here is he's been criticized by the media the last few days and few weeks and few months for having these supposed nefarious ties to Russia and loyalty to Russia. And he's saying, though, and so the people who are criticizing for this seem to have like a hatred or dislike for Russia. But he's saying, look what's happening here in our own country. We have the intelligence community giving you media people leaks, and you're taking them and using them. That's something happens in Russia, the country you supposedly hate, and hate me for having these supposed nefarious connections with. And he's saying maybe if you hated Russia so much, you would not, as the media, be willing to take this information illegally from these intelligence sources, or be publishing this information, or be so happily reporting this information. You'd be worried that our country was becoming like Russia in having this information being leaked out constantly from the intelligence services to the press. So you're being hypocritical, media. So that's what he might be saying there, possibly. But it's interesting that he says just like Russia. I think there's another thing here, because he wants to have supposedly a better relationship with Russia. So it's a bit weird here if he's saying like, well, in Russia this terrible thing happens where the intelligence community leaks information to the press. When he says just like Russia in this tweet, it sounds kind of like a shot at Russia, but he hasn't been taking shots at Russia. So when I initially read this tweet, I was like, whoa, is he taking a shot at Russia here? Because that'd be sort of like a policy switch for him if he starts taking shots at Russia. So I think right now, I don't want to read the just like Russia as a shot at Russia. I read just like Russia as more like, if you think this stuff is bad, you probably think Russians do this as well, and you probably think it's bad that they do it. So if you're not going to be hypocritical, you shouldn't be happy that these leaks are coming out and joyfully reporting them. You should be upset that these leaks are coming out, and you should be investigating the leaks because you don't like Russia, so you shouldn't like that this kind of stuff that goes on in Russia is going on with our intelligence community and our press. But I think it can come off as like a shot at Russia, but I don't think he means it that way. Now that I look at it and think about it, because that would be kind of a policy switch for him. So I don't think you should see this as like, oh, he's trying to... Somebody might look at a tweet like this and look at the just like Russia and see President Trump is trying to distance himself from Russia because of all the accusations about the Russian connections that have been coming out. I don't think he's doing that, because that doesn't seem very Trumpy to me. It doesn't seem like President Trump to like abandon an earlier position. His position has been like, we want a better relationship with Russia. So I don't think he's just going to abandon that today in some tweets. So I think when he says just like Russia, that's more of a message to the media than like a criticism of Russia. I think maybe that's what it's for. Okay, so now my question is this. We've gotten through, so normally President Trump does not tweet out 6 tweets at a time. Normally it's 1 or 2. So normally if we did an episode of Trump tweets today, it would not have to cover 6 tweets. So we've done 3 today. We have done 3 in 72 minutes. In 72 minutes, we've done 3, and we've done them kind of quickly. Thank you for those of you who have watched. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. And if it wasn't enjoyable, I guess you didn't watch or turned it off. But I think it's interesting, and I think it's important. I mean, I think, again, that it's important to look at these tweets carefully. And I even feel myself, by going through them with you, I'm getting a better idea of what they say, and I'm finding new ways to look at them that I think seem plausible to me. So, but if during this show you want to write in and comment, I'd love to read your messages or read your questions. Either go to @Lookner on Twitter, @LOOKNER, that's my Twitter, and direct message me there. Follow me if you'd like as well. Or email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. Okay, so here's the deal. We will go through at least one more tweet. I don't know if we want to go through all 6, but I want to go through all 6. I don't know if I want to do it in one sitting, because I want to do justice to all the tweets. So I don't want to like rush through the last 2 or whatever. We'll do at least one more. Let me look at them in a second. But let me look at your messages first and see what's here. Let's see what's here. We have, we have Andrew S. says, just saying hello, I'm watching you from Xbox One. Thank you, Andrew, for saying hello. Hello back on Xbox One. I'm not on Xbox One, but hello back watching from Xbox One. We also have here messages. Let's see. We have Monica Sadel, and Monica Sadel says, I just read a bunch of comments between people saying the intelligence community is going to take out President Trump. Sad face. Who are these people? They said they got Flynn and going on to the next one. Yikes. So there is this worry out there that there are people in the intelligence community who are intentionally leaking stuff damaging to President Trump and people like General Flynn and his administration. And there's this worry that they're going to keep doing this and try to take President Trump down. How much of a worry is this? I don't know, honestly. It's possible that this stuff about General Flynn just came out and was directed more at General Flynn and not so much at President Trump, but who knows? But it is problematic that this stuff is coming out so frequently. And so I remember when the story about General Flynn came out, that he had these talks with the Russian ambassador, part of me felt like, well, General Flynn's not an idiot. General Flynn's been like at the highest levels of the intelligence organizations. So if they're recording this conversation, I'm guessing General Flynn knows that. So why would General Flynn have this conversation if he knew it was going to be recorded? And the thought I had was just that, well, maybe there's this tradition in the intelligence community that these kind of conversations are never leaked. So he wasn't worried about it. And then this conversation got leaked. So I have this worry that perhaps what's happening now is we're seeing like a level of leaking from the intelligence community that we haven't seen before, and it's like greater than before. And there's certain people there. Look, in any other walk of life, there's people who hate Trump. Friends of mine, like other places, school or whatever. I've been at workplaces where this happened. There's people who hate him, and they really hate him, and they're happy to do stuff to undermine him. So President Trump, I mean. So it would not at all surprise me that in an intelligence community where many people were appointed under Democratic administrations, there are at least some people who dislike President Trump and really want to do what they can to undermine him. Now, is it possible that this is going to new levels and is very problematic in the future? It's possible, I don't know. So it is certainly something to keep an eye on. I don't know what exactly will happen. But it's something, and I don't know the extent of it. Maybe it's not that big of an extent. I don't know, Monica, but a good question about that anyway. And let's see if there are other questions or comments here. Kathleen Kaiser was nice enough to send out the contact information. I appreciate it. Let's see. We have a sort of joking a joking message from Bob See Your Uncle, and Bob See Your Uncle says, Russia, breaking news, Russia hacks the brains of lamestream media. Wolf Blitzer bangs his head against the walls of the Situation Room. Thank you for that, Bob See Your Uncle. And let me just see if there's any emails here. Let's see. I have to just check my email real quick and see if there are any messages people have sent in. Okay, this is from Pepident Pressy. And Pepident Pressy, so I think it's like President Pepe, but like backwards or something like that, or reversed. Pepident Pressy says, just like Russia, as in Russia, the deep state, the intelligence agencies, security establishment, and old bureaucrats have a lot of power over the president and others instead of being subordinated to him. So it sounds like Pepident Pressy is saying our intelligence community, Pepident Pressy feels, is similar to Russia in that there's like a deep state there and that there's old bureaucrats with lots of power over the president and others. So thank you, Pepident Pressy, for your comment. Okay, we're going to do at least one more tweet. I want to do all of them, but I also don't want to have a 5-hour video cast. I try to keep these things within reasonable amounts of length. Let's see here. So we covered 3 of the 6. 1, 2, 3. There's 3 more he did this morning. Which one should we cover? Oh, well, one of them just quotes. All right, one of them real quick is like, thank you to Eli Lake of the Bloomberg. We're gonna do the middle one. So here's what we're doing. We're not gonna do. So this is the one we're not gonna do. Although I mean it'd be worthy to do it, but I'm gonna go past it quickly. This is the 4th one. This is thank you to Eli Lake of the Bloomberg View, and he quotes an article where Eli Lake said the NSA and FBI should not interfere in our politics and is very serious situation for USA. One interesting thing I'll say about this tweet is if you actually go to the Eli Lake article, and the Eli Lake article I'll show you is there. It's called The Political Assassination of Michael Flynn. So you can Google that if you want the article that President Trump is referring to in this tweet. But the interesting thing about this article is, so President Trump quotes the article, but at the same time, the first part of the article says stuff like, it's not pro-Trump, President Trump. It says like, basically the first part of this article has like, it talks about how it expresses some criticism of the way President Trump's administration has handled the General Flynn situation and talked about it. So it's interesting that President Trump is quoting an article that's not entirely pro-Trump, and the first part of which is not pro-Trump. But it also shows you that President Trump is not just reading right-wing media outlets, that he's open to media outlets that don't always support him. So that I found interesting. But in the interest of time, we're going to move on to the next tweet. This is the one I want to cover here. This will be the last one we cover today here on Trump Tweets Today, because I think it's really interesting. And this tweet says this: Crimea was taken by Russia, taken in capitals, during the Obama administration. Was Obama too soft on Russia? Crimea was taken by Russia during the Obama administration. Was Obama too soft on Russia? So let's look at this one for a second. Let me come back to me. Hold on. All right. Now, one interesting thing here I want to point out is, so when I first saw this, I thought to myself, like, wow, President Trump is coming out clearly against the Crimea invasion. Is this like a policy shift on Russia in the sense of he seems to be kind of attacking Russia for this? So remember, we had a tweet earlier in the 6 tweets, and this is important, that said like, hey, the intelligence community is illegally giving the media these leaks, just like Russia. And that seemed to be a criticism of Russia. And here in another tweet this morning, we have Crimea was taken by Russia, implying that they didn't have a right to it during the Obama administration. Was Obama too soft on Russia? Now, it's possible that these 2 tweets do suggest a shift on Russian President Trump's policy toward Russia. President Trump has not been overtly critical of Russia, at least in the public pronouncements I've heard since he took office. And so this to me is just a giant oversight by the mainstream media that they're not reporting this on today. Like, I think this is like big news. You can look at these 2 tweets and say like, whoa, it's possible that he's sort of reorienting his policy toward Russia. Now, I'm not saying that's definitely how you should read the tweets. I'm just saying like, it is something that's interesting to look at and something which might suggest something more. So let's keep an eye over the next week or 2 about what else President Trump says about Russia. But okay, so he says Crimea was taken by Russia, taken in capital letters by Russia during the Obama administration. So when he's saying taken in capital letters, is part of the reason he's doing that to say like, look, I want to make it clear, I don't think they were right to move in there. I think it's wrong for them to have gone into Crimea and take it over, and they don't really have a right to it. So that's one thing he could be saying. But by taken, he says during the Obama administration, was Obama too soft on Russia? All right, let's try to think about this here. Was Obama too soft on Russia? I gotta look at this as a whole. So, I mean, part of what he's maybe saying here is that, like, look, you guys are saying that all these comments are coming out, all these like comments are coming out from the media about like how I'm nefariously involved with Russia in some way, and how I'm too pro-Russia, and how I'm sinister from Russia. Oh, I had an idea, so I'll tell you that. But a couple things going on here. First, he seems to be saying, hey, media, you're being hypocritical, as he said in the previous tweet. If you think it's bad to have good relations with Russia, then you should have been criticizing President Obama for being soft on Russia when Russia took Crimea. So I guess President Trump is suggesting something like, we weren't as hard on Russia as we could have been when they took Crimea. We didn't send any weapons to the Ukraine. There were sanctions. We passed sanctions on them, but they could have been harsher, but they weren't. And you might think that if the media thinks Russia is so bad, and that the media being soft on Russia is bad, they should have been critical of President Obama's reaction to Crimea when Crimea was taken. But here's another thing. This is interesting. So, well, I don't know about that. I had a thought here that he was comparing himself to like Obama's reaction on this when he said taken. But yeah, I think it's so. The difficulty I'm having with this tweet is same as the just like Russia tweet. I think this is a very important foreign policy question that arises in these tweets. This question, to repeat again, is in these tweets where President Trump seems to say Russia illegally took Crimea, and in Russia the intelligence service illegally gives secret info to the press. He seems to be attacking Russia in those two tweets. And is he doing that? And I think a big part of the reason he's doing that is he's saying, look, media, if you think Russia did this stuff, you should attack them now. You should be attacking the Obama administration. You should be attacking the press. You should be attacking, the press who collude, the American press who takes this stuff from the intelligence community. Because you should be attacking you should be attacking the Obama administration. You should be attacking the American intelligence community. You should be attacking the American press who takes these illegal leaks from them. So I think that's part of why he's saying, Crimea was taken by Russia, and also why he's saying, just like Russia, the intelligence service illegally gives stuff to the press, just like Russia. But perhaps we're seeing the start of a bit of a transition on President Trump's policy toward Russia here. And this transition is that President Trump is going to be a little more openly critical of Russia. I don't know, but that definitely struck me in his tweets this morning, that he seemed to be kind of critical of Russia in a way he hadn't been before. So that's something we should think about, I think, going forward. Okay, so what have we done so far? Just for completeness' sake, I'm going to just show you the last two tweets President Trump has said today, just for completeness' sake, so we're all caught up here. One is, the real scandal here is that classified information is illegally given out by intelligence like candy, very un-American. I could say more about that, but just in the interest of time, maybe I'll say more about it later. I'm going to cut that off right now, because I think the natural length of this show is almost over. So that's that one. So I wanted to show you that one. And let me see, and it's very interesting, but I just want to, and this next one is, great listening session with CEOs of the Retail Industry Leaders Association this morning. That might seem like, it's just a standard tweet about this event in the White House this morning, but I think he always tweets for a reason, so there's something more to be said about that. But you know what? As we almost reach 90 minutes, I'm going to stop in a moment here, just because, I like to keep these things at a manageable length. So normally I think they will not be this so long just because there were so many tweets, and I've enjoyed doing it, but I want to keep it at a manageable length. But I also want to give a last opportunity to see if any of you had any questions or comments before I ended for now. Let's see here. Let's see. We have a comment from Solely Trump Mania. You wrote in, but I'm not sure what you're referring to, and I don't know if it's about one of the tweets. So feel free to email me back and clarify. And let me just see if there are any others. I don't want to leave any emails unanswered here. And this is a new one from Pepin Pressy, who wrote in before. Pepin Pressy says, many think WikiLeaks is partly given info by Russian intelligence, who leaks it both to undermine some people and to outsource intelligence analysis, i.e. a bunch of people online mine their data for info completely for free, and their agents don't have to do anything. Maybe President Trump means the American intelligence community is leaking information illegally to the media, like Russia supposedly leaked out stuff to WikiLeaks, both to undermine him and possibly to have people look for anything wrong with him for them. So you're saying President Pepe, and then he says they're desperate. So maybe President Pepe, what you're saying is something like the media is leaking this stuff to the press because part of the reason they're doing this is to try to encourage citizens to help them investigate stuff too and try to come out with more information that's incriminating on Trump, because they're stuck at this point and they don't have enough information as much as they want. So interesting view, President Pressy. So anyways, what did we do here today? Thank you so much for joining us here today. Thank you to the moderators for moderating. The idea here of Trump tweets today is these tweets are important and they deserve to be analyzed, they deserve to be looked at, and the mainstream media is not covering them. And I think actually these tweets today are very newsworthy. And one specific newsworthy aspect, as I said, is he seems to be taking, in a couple of tweets, this anti-Russia public line, what he hadn't really taken before. And is that signs of a bigger foreign policy switch, or was he not really taking such a line and he was just doing it for his specific tweeting needs? You can go back and listen to the analysis of the tweets earlier in this broadcast to hear about that view. So we'll see what happened. But I will say this, in the future, I look forward to talking more when an interesting tweet comes out. I will definitely do another show about it because I think they're worth talking about. So it's a bit of a nerdy podcast, I guess you could say, because it focuses on the specific language. But again, mainstream media spends all this time talking about Trump. Endless hours and hours, and they never spend time on the tweets. I don't know why this is. So I think time deserves to be spent on them, and they're important. And so at least I'm going to do it. And I'd love for you to do it with me. So feel free, when we do it again, to send in your comments and questions. Also, if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Lookner, at Lookner. And I promise to give you a heads up in the future when I'm doing breaking news coverage for Right Side, or doing another thing about Trump's tweets, or doing anything else, President Trump's tweets or anything else. I will give you a heads up. So again, follow me on Twitter if you want, at Lookner, at Lookner. Thank you for watching so much. I so appreciate it. I do this show, and we do our shows for you. So really appreciate you watching. Thank you for all the excellent comments. Thank you to the moderators for moderating as usual. And if there's more news today or more important tweets today, I will be back here with you. If not, have a great rest of your day. And we will see you later on. And thank you to everybody who's saying thank you now, like Jacqueline and Heart of Dixie, and whoever else is going to say hi in the next 5 seconds. If you want to take 5 seconds and say hi, take 5 seconds and say hi. Webster and Glenda and Donna and Dawn and Disc R and None Words to Say and Fuller Bull. And who else was there? Duke and Rokin and Deanne and Jacqueline O. Who else is out there? Forgotten Man. Who else? Who else? Rocky Mike, thank you. You had breakfast and lunch with me. Good. I hope you enjoyed breakfast and lunch. Who else who hasn't said hi yet, who wants to say goodbye? I'll say goodbye to you. F.S. Anderson. Yes, hello to you. Who else? Who else is there? Tripster60, hi. This is the last 30 seconds. Just me says hi. This is the last 30 seconds shout out portion. Prelude Linux. Wolf, hello to you. Thank you for watching so far. Anyone else? Donna Smith. Vicky Richardson, Luddle Bear, Discar, Jeff Miles, Bud420, Angela Ray. Everybody's saying hi now. I'll keep going while people are still saying hi. Steve Yassell, see you soon. Bob's your uncle. We'll see you soon. He dropped his mic. Any other goodbyes? Thank you. Casey K, Mark Brown. Bud, I can't remember if I said goodbye to you yet. Anyone else out there wants to say a quick goodbye before I sign off? In seconds. I think we have all the goodbyes. Okay, so thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you. Frank in Florida said a quick hello. So we got Frank in Florida in. All right, I gotta go. I gotta get back to work. Zacharias Hansen said hi. Every time I'm about to go, somebody new comes out and says hi. So I gotta get back to work. Have to get back to work. But thank you again for watching. Thank you for joining me. Hope this was enjoyable for you. We will do it again real soon. Talk to you later. Have a great day, everyone.